Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about Nigel Farage and Reform UK. We'll mention that a bit. I want to also talk about Brexit. There's an interesting story about Brexit and Scotland as well. So let's jump into the first thing. Before we start, it's important for people to remember that there's still time to go out and register to vote. So if you're watching this live stream and you have not registered to vote in the UK, get down there and register straight away. There's still time. It's until midnight tonight. Get down there, register. There are a number of offices. You can check it out on the website where you need to go. Do that. If you're watching this live stream and you haven't registered, stop watching the live stream or put your shoes on, get your skates on and listen as you go. But do please register to vote if you haven't already done so. Well, I'll remind you before the end of the live stream anyway. So I want to start off with this amazing clip. So what's funny about Nigel Farage is he's really good at doing shows like Question Time or Newsnight or something like that, where he's doing a sort of one-to-one. He's asked to give his opinion on something. He speaks to the audience. He's good at these sort of things. But when he's challenged on, for example, policy, he completely falls apart. And he was asked a number of questions here on Good Morning Britain this morning, and he sort of, had a bit of a meltdown.
Can I ask about your candidates, Nigel Farage? You've defended 41 found to be social media friends of a fascist leader, a former organiser for the British National Party who founded the new British Union.
Why does he find this so funny? His response is to laugh. He finds all of this quite hilarious, it seems.
In the image of Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists. How can you defend 41 candidates for your party found to be social media friends?
I'm surprised. Yeah. Do you know what? This bloke's name, I didn't even know what the bloke's name was until last Thursday. And people put stuff on Facebook and they like a comment and they've no idea who it's come from.
No, they hadn't liked a comment. They're actual social media friends on...
They're actually friends of this guy on social media. It's not liking a comment. So Farage doesn't even know what he's talking about
Facebook.
Here.
That is saying that you want to be connected to someone.
Look, most of our candidates are not political sophisticates, all right? Now...
Is that a polite way to say that they're idiots? You know, it seems he's now claiming that, well, it's not my fault. It was a company that we hired to do the vetting process and they didn't do a very good job, which isn't actually a very good excuse because, once again, you're offloading responsibility onto somebody else. It's not my fault. Like Brexit, it's not his fault that Brexit is an absolute disaster. It's the Tories. You know, he told people that everything would be great, but if he had been in charge, then of course everything would have been great. But he never told people at the time in 2016. He didn't say, look, in order for Brexit to succeed, I have to be in charge. He knew that he would never be in charge. He knew that somebody else would have to carry the can. But it seems this company that was, I don't know whether this is true or not, but this is according to Nigel Farage and Reform UK. They had this company do the vetting process. They didn't do a very good job. And that's why all these strange individuals managed to get into the party or the company or whatever the hell you call it. But then this isn't a very good excuse for two reasons. One, you're just blaming everyone else. But the second is you're trying to suggest that people should vote for you because you're fiscally competent, that you would do due diligence, but you didn't here. You know, you've been conned by a company, it seems. You hired a company to do a job. They didn't do a good job. Whose fault is that? Why should people vote for you? Why should people put you in charge if you can't manage even a vetting process?
Having said that, like the Green Party, like other parties, we've had one or two slip through the net that shouldn't have done. There'll be a story coming out at lunchtime today where you'll hear that we paid a very large sum of money to a reputable vetting company who didn't do the work. So, yeah.
Whose fault is that? You know, Noam Chomsky has died. Oh, no. Sorry to hear that. Farage, you know, blaming somebody else. Oh, we hired this company. They didn't do a very good job. Then why the hell did you hire this company? Did you actually do some vetting process of the company itself?
Yes, we've got one or two problems.
Okay,
but people liking each other on
actually take a
Facebook, I'm
vetting
sorry,
company.
I just don't take that seriously.
It doesn't take a vetting company to check who's whose friend on Facebook.
Yes,
so what are you going to do?
Yes, it does.
What are you going to do with the 41 candidates? Are you happy with them standing and representing Reform UK?
As I say, people like each other on Facebook without knowing who they're liking.
Well, I think knowing who your friends are is quite an important test of your character. I am not friends with any fascist leaders on Facebook. Seconds. I can absolutely assure you of that.
No, and you're a highly paid London political sophisticate. A lot of our people aren't. They see a comment on Facebook, they like it. They've no idea where it's
not a comment, Nigel Farage. It's making a connection with someone who is a fascist leader. Okay.
And it's not just some random person, it's a fascist leader. It's somebody who's the head of an organization. And you're saying, well, it's just them liking. So this is, if it was just a case of, I liked the wrong post, okay, that's not so serious. You would just say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I liked the post, or I didn't understand the context or something. But this is a candidate for Reform UK who's friends with somebody on Facebook who's the head of a fascist organization. But this isn't the first time. There was another guy who's saying that, well, it was wrong for Britain to get into World War II. They should have stayed neutral. They should have done a deal with the Nazis. This is at the same time as you have Farage criticizing Rishi Sunak for not being patriotic enough. And he's welcoming people into his party or company or whatever the hell it is, who are saying, well, Britain should have actually stayed neutral during World War II.
So you're not going to do anything about those 41 candidates. What about
pressing a button.
What?
No.
It's what? It's pressing a button. Okay.
But it's not just pressing a button, because you know who these people are. You follow these people. Like, just think about it for a moment. If you, I don't think there's anyone on this stream who would be in this situation. But imagine you're in a situation where you discover, well, I'm friends with somebody who's the leader of a fascist organization. Well, I'll unfriend them and I'll criticize them, after unfriending them. I didn't know that they were. Like, most reasonable people would do that. This person obviously didn't do that.
A Reform UK candidate has apologised for claiming the country would be far better if it had taken Hitler up on his offer of neutrality instead of fighting the Nazis in World War II. He said, in Britain, we need to exorcise the cult of Churchill and recognise in both policy and military strategy he was abysmal. You want to teach a patriotic curriculum in secondary and primary schools. Is he the person you'd want to teach that?
Interestingly, Winston Churchill's great-nephew, the current Duke of Marlborough, has endorsed reform overnight. So we've got support.
Yeah, but that's not answering the question. What about the individual who said that Britain shouldn't have gone to war with Nazi Germany, and that Churchill was, what did he say that Churchill was, I don't know, he criticized Churchill in some way. But your response is, well, yes, but the great-grandnephew of Churchill is on our side. But how does that cancel it out? We have somebody who supports the Nazis and then somebody who supported Churchill. So it's like a balance, is it? That's how it works.
The Churchill family. There are some very eccentric people who think we shouldn't have fought either World War I or World War II because of the cost.
Okay, but why are these people attracted to your party? Because this isn't just one case. These are two people that we know about. How many people do we not know about? What sort of people are attracted to Reform UK and why?
In human terms and financial terms, I think they're playing wrong.
Okay, but this chap is going to carry on standing as a candidate for you, is he, as well as the other 41 who've linked with this fascist
Once your
leader?
Name...
Are you proud about all of your candidates, Nigel Farage?
By the way, people are allowed, in a free society, people are allowed to have different opinions.
Yes, they are allowed to have different opinions, but if they're running in your party, they're representing your party. You can try and disown them. Like, probably what happened. Look, the Reform UK are not doing any vetting process. They, once again, Farage is claiming that, well, we had this company, we hired this company and they failed us. Look, You have to take responsibility for this. I know you don't like doing that. It's always somebody else's fault, but you have to own this and say, we made a mistake. We allowed people in. We didn't vet them properly, and we should have vetted them properly and let them go, but we didn't. And now it's too late. They're already on the ballot. But you could do what Labour did when it was that. They disowned the candidate, but he won't disown the candidate because they need the votes.
I disagree vehemently that we should not have participated in World War II, but once your name's on the ballot paper, it can't be removed.
Are you proud that someone like that is representing your party?
I've just told you twice I disagree vehemently.
But you're not answering the question. Are you proud of this person representing your party? You either answer yes or no. If you say yes, I am, then you're endorsing his opinions. If you say no, then why not? But he doesn't want to say no because there are a lot of people watching this who support Reform UK who would like him to say, yeah, well, I actually agree. Maybe we shouldn't have gone to war with Nazi Germany in World War II.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, are you proud of your candidates?
For the third time of asking, I disagree vehemently with his comments.
Okay.
So that's not answering the question. See, this is a problem for Farage. He's not able to. He doesn't do very well when he's challenged on things like this. And before, when he was outside politics in a sense, he was given free run. He was able to say what he wanted. He was able to challenge politicians. And now that he's running for Clacton, for example, as an MP, he has to answer these questions. Now, there are more embarrassments for the Reform UK party. It says Reform Party contract appears to feature images from Slovenia and Germany. So there's a picture on their propaganda. It shows a picture of a boat, as you can see. But if you look closely, you probably can't see on your screen, but at the very top of the mast, there is a German flag. So once again, there was no vetting process done there. And this image, it seems, was taken from a Slovenian stock footage website, I believe, or a family. Yeah, location Slovenia. It was photographed in Slovenia. Okay, not Britain. Slovenia and Germany. Look, these are small things, but it shows that this is not a serious party. It's a protest party. It's a joke party. It's not even really a party. It's a company where Farage is the majority shareholder. And, people are told to come in and become members, but they have no influence in the party. They can't vote Farage out if they're not happy. They can't vote anyone out because it's a company and Farage is the majority shareholder. Another example, it's just getting worse and worse. A candidate accused of Islamophobia in 2019 stands for Reform UK under a different name. The candidate, now running under the name Doneen Moore, previously stood for the Brexit Party in 2019. Like, Islamophobia, Brexit Party, Reform UK. Once again, what sort of people does Reform UK attract? I'm not saying that everyone is Islamophobic or everyone is racist, but it seems to attract Islamophobes, racists, anti-Semites, all sorts. The worst types of people are attracted to the likes of the Brexit Party, the Reform UK Party, which is now the Brexit Party. A former Brexit Party candidate is running for Reform UK under a different name following accusations of Islamophobia in 2019. Diane Moore Kokoza, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, is now running in Glasgow West. Okay, good luck. What's the point? What's the point in running for Reform UK in Scotland? Using her middle name as a surname, no details on Reform UK's website linked to the candidate to the 2019 race. No, better not talk about that. Just don't talk about stuff. Maybe nobody will notice. But see, this is the problem. The media do a bit of digging into these candidates, or the general public do a bit of digging into these candidates, and they find all sorts of interesting things about them. The Reform UK candidate previously stood for the Brexit Party, later branded as Reform UK in Glasgow North under the name Diane Kokoza, whatever, receiving 320 votes. The candidacy in 2019 election drew attention after the University of Glasgow's student newspaper and Hope Not Hate reported on her social media use. At the time, she wrote on social media that Muslims wanted to institute Sharia law in a post viewed by Sky News. Freckle Punny, thank you so much for that super chat. Thanks for your support. Farage complains about getting ripped off by a vetting company, yet he endorses the crook Trump, renowned for ripping people off. Yes, it's beyond parody. You know, I got ripped off by this company, but you should support Donald Trump, who likes to rip people off. Wasn't Donald Trump was asking people to donate to his campaign, and then the money was not actually going to Donald Trump's campaign, it was going to Donald Trump to help pay his legal fees. And then there was, wasn't it, the other guy who was asking people to donate to build the wall, and then it was actually going into somebody's pocket. But people still continue to donate. That's the thing. People are still buying up memberships of Reform UK. Like, for what reason? We want Nigel to win. Nigel Farage has very deep-pocketed funders. They can give him money to help him run his campaign. He doesn't need the money from the public. It's a grift. Well, look at all these people giving me money. Continue. Like, where is this money going? Remember, Reform UK is a company. So this money is likely, I don't know, but it's possible that this money is going into his pocket and not into the company to run this campaign. George, thank you so much for that super chat. So Reform UK is a company. No, Zero can vote for its CEO. Zero democracy. Yes, nobody can. They're like subscribers. They're not members. So they're paying £25 to become a member. But, you know, when will they realize that if they're not happy with Farage, they can't kick him out because they have no control over the party or company? It's beyond ridiculous. Nigel Farage says Reform's real ambition is the next general election, so this is just a dry run for the next one. Nigel Farage has acknowledged Reform UK will not form a government after the 4th of July, but said the general election campaign is the first big push towards the next contest. Launching his party's offer to the electorate, which he is calling a contract rather than a manifesto, excuse me, Mr. Farage said his campaign has momentum after the country, around the country, including the support of a rapidly increasing number of 18 to 24-year-olds. Yes, maybe they've moved from single figures to double figures. Speaking in Marathai, Tidefil. I'm really sorry to anyone from Wales who's watching the live stream. Apologies. In South Wales, has said that that there has been a breakdown of trust in politics and hoped Reform would establish a bridgehead in Parliament to become a real opposition to the Labour government. Now, seriously, on a serious note, I think what Farage wants to do is he wants to get back into the Conservative Party. I think what he wants to do is he wants to achieve a situation where he wins a seat, he wins Clacton, doesn't really care about the others, but he wants to win Clacton so that he becomes a member of Parliament and then he can defect to the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party will be, you know, in tatters after the general election, and then the membership will be like, great, we have Nigel on board. Nigel is worth, you know, Boris Johnson, Suella Braverman and Liz Truss, a combination of that sort of hydra. Mix them all together, turn it into some sort of hydra, and Nigel Farage is that. It's not a very good analogy, but you get the picture. But Farage is worth 10 of Boris Johnson, 10 of Liz Truss, whatever. And what they'll do is they want to put him in charge, and Farage will jump at the chance, because the only way he can become leader of the Conservative Party is through the membership. Now, the MPs, there won't be that many of them. Probably the more extreme will be left, the ones who have safe seats. So they'll probably not be able to really stand in his way. And, you know, things like the 1922 committee, if it still exists after the general election, you're going to need very few votes to have a confidence vote or whatever. So it may not be the case that Farage will become a member of the Conservative Party straight away, but I do see it happening sometime in the next Parliament. So the party, the Conservatives, will be in tatters. Farage will be invited to join the ship. but he'll have to defect to the Conservatives. And then what will happen to Reform UK? It will be mothballed. It will be abandoned. You know, all the people who donated to it, will they get a refund? Of course they won't. The people who, like Richard Tice and others, who lent money or whatever, they'll probably get recompensated, but the whole thing will be closed down. I imagine that's what's going to happen. If Farage is, it's all about Farage. He wants to have influence, and I believe that's what he wants to do. He wants to join the Conservative Party and run it from there. And Reform UK is a stepping stone, because if you think about it any other way, if Farage wins the seat and doesn't defect, what is he going to do? He'll be constricted in Parliament, because he'll have to, you know, he won't be able to probably have a second job, so he won't be able to go campaigning around. He'll have to answer questions, you know, from his constituents. He'll be expected to represent his constituents. He'll try and grandstand in the House of Commons, but it won't be like the European Parliament. He'll actually have to do stuff, and he doesn't want to do stuff. So I think he'll use his seat in Clacton in order to get into the Conservative Party, and he'll be welcomed. The membership would vote for him at the drop of a hat, unfortunately, because they're more extreme than the MPs. Anyway, guys, let's move on and away from Nigel Farage for a moment. So sticking with the general election, as it's just around the corner, we have this from David Cameron.
I'm here fighting for every vote for every seat.
No, you're not. Let's just put to bed this idea that an MP or a candidate is running or is fighting. Well, obviously he's not a candidate because he's a member of the House of Lords, but the Conservatives are not fighting for every seat. That's impossible, because there are people who want asylum seekers to be treated with respect, and there are people who want asylum seekers to be treated like absolute scum. So how do you square that circle? How do you appeal to both sides? You can't. So it's just a stupid lie that politicians put out. Farage has to be 100% about his company finances. Oh, yes. Yeah, because, you know, they'll start investigating his company finances if he becomes an MP. It's still not sure. It's not a guarantee that he will become an MP. I think some of the wheels are starting to come off the Farage bandwagon. And the return of Boris Johnson could be a bit of a problem for Farage as well, because Boris Johnson is very well liked in the Conservative Party. And many people who voted for him in 2019 would like to see him again. They believe that he was stabbed in the back. Now, a lot of people voted just to get Brexit done and get it over the line and then forget about it. But obviously that was a lie. And they're very upset with Partygate. They're very upset with Liz Truss and her mini budget. So they don't care whether Boris Johnson comes back or not. But Boris Johnson coming back to campaign will, I think, help the Tories a little bit. But it's more about shoring up their voter base. And it may convince some people who may be sitting on the fence, well, if Boris is back to campaign, I like Boris, and yeah, maybe I'll give the Tories another go. Thanks, George, yes. But if Farage becomes an MP, he'll have to talk about his finances, and you can imagine how transparent he would be about that. You know, the books would be just as clean as Donald Trump's.
I'm here fighting for every vote for every seat. And the more votes and the more seats we get, the more chance the Conservatives have of winning. And if you are worried by these polls and think somehow we might not win, but it's important, they're there to hold any future government to account, it's really important you vote Conservative. You vote for...
So what he wants people to do, this message can only work with people who already are convinced about voting for the Conservative Party. This can only be a message to people who vote Conservative, are considering voting Conservative, but are also considering staying at home. Because this is not going to win anyone over. Just think about it more. Like, if you want to punish the Tories, why would you come out and vote for them to hold Keir Starmer back in some way? To stop Keir Starmer from winning a majority? This message can only work, if it can work at all, Peppa Pig world, can only work if you're sending a message to the Tory base who may be considering staying at home. No, you need to come out, otherwise Keir Starmer will win a super majority, which is a ridiculous concept in British politics, but he'll win a massive majority. We don't want that. We need to hold him to account in the same way that the Labour Party were able to hold us to account when we had an 80-seat majority. Yeah, how well did that work out? Alice, thank you so much for that super chat. I think Cameron would be more comfortable in a pig farm getting piggy with it. That's pretty gross. But we all know what it's all about. Thanks so much, Alice. Yes, he would be.
For anybody else, vote for the Democrats. They won't hold Labour to account. They're not a force to confront them. They're simply an echo of them. They would make them worse. More taxes, more spending, more borrowing, more wokery, more nonsense.
No, he doesn't mention the European Union. Look, what wokery, more wokery? Is this the line that Number 10 has given everyone who's campaigning for the Conservatives, be them MPs or members of the House of Lords? Mention wokery, mention immigration, mention this. Oh no, you'd better not vote for the Lib Dems or the Greens or someone else, because this will help. This won't be a real opposition. We saw in the last Parliament, define wokery, and nobody can define wokery. It's undefinable. But we saw this in the last Parliament. Labour were not able to stop the Tories. The only way the Tories were stopped was when actual Tories, members of the House of Commons from the Conservative Party, rebelled, actually voted with the opposition. That's the only way, and that's going to be the only way that if Keir Starmer is to be stopped in Parliament, if he has a massive majority. See, now people may think, well, if he has a 150-seat majority, he can do what he wants. No. He could have a 150-seat majority and it'd be the same as having a 50-seat majority, because there will be people in the Labour Party in the future Parliament who will say, I don't agree with this policy, or I can't sell this policy to my constituents. Now, I think at the beginning it will be pretty easy, and if I was Starmer, I'd rush through as many things as possible as soon as possible, because the longer it goes on, the more support for the party wanes and more division starts to appear. Like, having a 150 or 200 seat majority may sound absolutely amazing, but it actually can be a problem, because you'll end up having a lot of division within the party, because you're going to bring in a lot of people and not everyone agrees. And because you have a broad church, I know a lot of the left have been removed, but you'll still end up with a broad church, and it's going to be difficult to get everyone to agree on stuff. Now, the whips will be working overtime, but you can't be applying 3-line whips at every turn. And what you want to do is you want to eliminate or reduce rebellions. And if you have a 150-seat majority and 50 of them rebel, that's it. Even though you get your legislation through, it looks really bad. It looks like there's massive division within the party. So, in a sense, having a smaller majority is better. There are risks, of course, but some of them will end up voting with the opposition. But having a massive majority runs the risk of not being able to get policies through, because you'll end up having to pander to certain people within the party, not people so much outside.
It wouldn't hold them back, they'd encourage them to go further. So it's so important that we get all Conservative voters out to back our government, to back Rishi, and to make sure we cross that winning line on July the 4th.
Winning line? What planet are you on? You're not going to win. Your party is going to lose. They're going to lose massively. Look, poll after poll after poll, unless something... Look, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but unless something dramatic happens, unless Keir Starmer eats the live baby on live TV, unless it turns out that Rishi Sunak is actually Jesus Christ. I don't know. These are the sort of things that could actually change the polls, but I don't see any of these things happening. It's not impossible. It's just extremely remote. Oh my goodness. So guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so I'm just going to take a short comedy moment. But before we do, just a reminder for anyone who has just appeared, remember, there is still time to go out and vote. Remember, if you have not register to vote. Go out and register. Sorry, not time to vote, but register to vote. First, you have to register. If you're in the United Kingdom, go to the UK register to vote website. Check that out. Make sure that you have all the documentation you need to register. There's still time before midnight tonight. After that, you will not be able to vote. So make sure you do that. If you're watching the live stream and you haven't voted, you haven't registered, leave the live stream now or put it on your phone on a mic, on a headset or whatever, but get down to where you need to be and register to vote, because this is very, very important. Even though we're talking about a massive majority, it's important that you exercise your democratic right. You can't complain after if you didn't register to vote and vote. So let's move to our our comedy section for a moment, and then we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff.
Welcome to Broken News. Jesus Christ Superstar came down from heaven on a Yamaha, pulled a skid, killed a kid, then he cut his knob on a dustbin lid. Our reporter has more.
It was a scene nobody was expecting in this sleepy British village. The Son of God descending from the sky just behind me on a high-spec Japanese dirt bike. He then performed a series of stunts in front of astonished residents. But the cheers soon turned to screams when our Lord and Saviour crashed into local 9-year-old Bobby Jobson, killing him instantly. The only begotten Son of the living God was then flung from the vehicle and into a nearby recycling centre, severely lacerating the tip of his glands. The now doubly circumcised Redeemer and King of Kings then got back on the bike, holding his battered wang, and rode off before police could arrive, leaving residents here shocked and devastated. Back to you.
Ethereal, thank you. Well, local police are still looking for the fugitive Jesus. If you think you may have seen him, please call the number on your screen now. Members of the public have been urged not to approach the Christ at large. He is said to be extremely dangerous and famously difficult to kill. That's all from us. Do take care.
That was a weird one. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on to something a little bit serious. Well, maybe not very serious. Rishi Sunak was out campaigning, looking out for more votes, if there are any, but it didn't go very well. Here he is trying to feed the sheep, and the sheep don't trust him. That didn't go very well, did it? But it's not his biggest problems. He has much bigger problems than attempting to feed a few sheep, or, as was pointed out there, Farage supporters. So Keir Starmer considering mandatory voter ID review. So this could be some good news. Keir Starmer has said that he's concerned about the impact of mandatory voter ID and is thinking of reviewing it if he gets into government. Speaking to Sky News ahead of tonight's deadline to register to vote, so remember to register to vote. In the general election, he said the policy may have some flaws. The Labour leader told Sky News, "I think we need to review and look at the ID rules. I'm concerned about the impact and I won't shy away from that. But my message today is to remember your ID when you go to vote this time around, because it's so important that people want to change, who want change do vote for change." Under rules introduced by the Conservatives in 2022, which Boris Johnson actually forgot his ID the last time, people eligible to vote have to produce some form of photo ID to cast their ballots. The general election is the first time photo ID is required everywhere nationally. Previous by-elections, local elections and Police and Crime Commission elections have required ID before. The changes were brought in to stamp out what Conservative government claimed would potentially lead to high levels of voter fraud. There is no real voter fraud, but the Electoral Commission said the number of offences had been minimal, and instead there was a risk that the policy could put people off voting. Yes, see, that's the plan. Stop, disenfranchise people. Stop people from actually voting by pretending that there's a risk that the wrong people will vote, or some people will vote twice, or they'll vote for the wrong they'll vote for the wrong party. It's a way of, and it's a typical tool used by the Republicans, the conservatives' friends in America, the Republican Party, try and disenfranchise your enemies, your opponents, their supporters, and enfranchise your own ones. So, for example, I think it was in Texas where a student ID is not a valid form of identification to vote, but a gun license is. Okay, so who's more likely to have a gun? I know in probably Texas everyone has a gun, including toddlers, but you're more likely to be, a gun owner if you're a Republican than, and even if you're a student studying in a university in Texas, your ID is not valid. Now that was some years ago. I don't know if they've upgraded. Maybe they've made it even more difficult for young people to vote. Anyway, because young people don't generally vote left wing. Not always, but generally. Okay, I'm a bit concerned about some of the issues that are not being dealt with correctly. So, for example, child poverty. So in the next election, after the next election, in the next parliament, we would hope that the next government would deal with child poverty, because child poverty is something that, you can talk about, okay, should we improve infrastructure? Should we spend more on defense? But these are things that, we can ask questions about. But child poverty must be something that has to be must be something to be eliminated. There can't be a discussion about, well, is it too expensive to try and bring down child poverty? But unfortunately, Annalise Dodds didn't answer this very well.
What we're opposed to is child poverty, but the challenge that we have is, just as Keir said there isn't a magic wand that can suddenly create money out of the air. No, the Conservatives...
You can create money out of the air because the government is not like a household. You can borrow, you can increase taxes, you can cost it. Like one of the responses to this is, well, the two child benefit cap, we can't scrap it because we have to cost it. But then just cost it. Just say, okay, how much would it cost to get rid of this cap, and then invest the money in reducing poverty. A number of charities have said that if you were to remove this cap, you would alleviate poverty for hundreds of thousands of children around Britain. But it's too expensive, it seems, or it can't be costed.
Conservatives are seeming to pretend that there is, with their £71 billion of unfunded promises. That's not Labour's approach, though. We know that every single policy that we set out to the electorate at this general election must be costed. That's absolutely fundamental to having the respect of the general public and running government properly. We will, of course, have a strategy to combat child poverty. The last Labour...
Okay, but one thing is a strategy, but this we know works. Like a strategy, we don't know if it will work or not, but this actually works. This alleviates poverty. Removing the cap, that is, not having the cap. So abolishing this cap would, as charities have said, alleviate, because you can say, well, if there's a limit on how many children can be covered by it, and you remove that limit, then obviously they're going to be protected. It's about lifting people out of poverty. Like, just think about it from a societal point of view. You lift these children out of poverty. They're able to go to school. They're able to become functioning members of society. They're able to go to university. They're able to learn a skill. They're able to work. They're able to contribute. This helps the economy. If you just want to look at it from an economic point of view, not a moral point of view. But from a moral point of view, I keep saying, what's the point in having a government if it doesn't look after the poorest in society? It doesn't look after everyone in society. It doesn't provide health, education, and a social safety net.
Government lifted 500,000 children out of child poverty. We're determined that we'll be bearing down on it through the kinds of measures that Keir was talking about there. Be very happy to go into more detail on them because they're critically important. But we can't promise the earth at this election because the money is not there to promise the earth. As I said, the Tories don't seem to have understood that, but Labour has. What we're opposed...
It is depressing because you need to look after these priorities. This is a priority. This isn't something like, okay, you invest and you get something back immediately. This is investing in the future of society. Children. Like, how can somebody say we shouldn't actually protect children from poverty? It's very odd to look at child poverty as a budget. It is. What happens if you don't look after the poor? Then they become destitute, and then you end up with issues like crime. 2.5 billion to scrap the 2-child cap. Thanks so much, David, and welcome to the stream. And Reagan, I see Reagan Elite is there too. Make sure to check out Indie Truck Davy's YouTube channel. 2.5 billion. You know, somebody wrote here, 205 billion on Trident is a colossal waste. Like, I don't like comparing these two different things, but you know, one is an investment in the future, one is a deterrent, but there are other ways that you don't even have to focus on defense. Henrietta, thank you so much for that super chat. Stop all the fake, not real asylum seekers having a hotel extended stay. It's very simple from a right-wing viewpoint. You believe these people deserve more taxpayers' money. You might be part of the problem. Process the claims. If you process the claims, then you can move people out of hotels. It was an actual political choice made by Robert Jenrick and the Conservative government not to process the claims. Nobody wants people stuck in hotels. The people in the hotels don't want to be stuck in hotels. They would prefer, the vast majority of them, they would prefer to have a reasonable life. They would prefer to be working, contributing. That's why many of them are in the UK, to improve their lives or to work. I'm not saying everyone is an asylum seeker. Most of them who claim to be asylum seekers are. The government, the Home Office said over 70% are successful. So nobody wants them in hotels. Everyone wants them moved out of hotels and into regular accommodation. It's a narrative that the Tories are pushing, that they want everyone in hotels. Or let's just keep them in hotels. Nobody wants them in hotels. And also, they're not 5-star hotels or luxury hotels, because they don't have swimming pools, they don't have menus, they don't have room service. It's no longer a hotel if it's been converted into an asylum center or asylum accommodation. Like, it's no longer a hotel. This is something that Farage and others tried to sell, this idea. Well, these people are being moved into luxury hotels. But a luxury hotel has a swimming pool, a spa, room service, a menu in the restaurant, a 5-star, a Michelin star restaurant or whatever. That's no longer the case. Obviously, it's no longer a 5-star hotel. George, thank you so much for that super chat. If you're an American, get a gun license plus an ID. You don't have to have a gun, and there's no one forcing you to have a gun, except maybe at gunpoint. Yes. Thanks so much, George. Yes. So if you want to vote, I was just throwing out an example there of Texas. I don't know if it's the case everywhere, but you know, people need to get out there, register to vote, and vote according to your interests. Vote for policies. Don't vote for personalities. Vote for policies. Do you think this policy is good for you, good for your family, good for the country? Then vote for that. I'm completely against this idea of these charlatans or these personalities. You know, I'm going to vote for Boris, or I'm going to vote for Keir, or I'm going to vote for whoever. No, vote for a policy. Look at the policy and say, is this a good policy? Yes, it is, or no, it isn't. Or do I want more of the Conservatives? Vote for the Conservatives if you want more of the Conservatives. But I don't think there are many people who want to do that. Now, hopefully nobody will clip that bit out. Anyway, let's move on. But when it comes to child poverty, it has to be a priority for all governments. Eliminating child poverty. We could eliminate it. Look at what happened to homelessness during the pandemic. Homelessness was pretty much eliminated. Why? Because people were moved off the street because it was dangerous. It was dangerous to middle class and upper class people. They didn't want to be mingling with the homeless. So they were like, get the homeless off the streets. Unfortunately, that ended. So we can eliminate certain problems if we decide actually to do that. This was an interesting exchange.
hang on, but in this election, the Conservatives haven't really talked about Brexit, nor Labour.
I didn't think it was on the table in this election until we read that Rachel Reeves
But is one of the
this weekend.
factors that you can't talk about the benefits and what's been
during
delivered?
During the pandemic, we saw the advantage of being outside the European Medicines Agency, where we got the vaccine secured.
Wrong. I'm not going to bring up the clip again. I've worn out that piece of tape. But how come this never gets challenged? Why is it only people like myself who challenge this? The UK was a member of the European Medicine Agency at the time. Regime. Sorry, it was part of the European Medicine regime. It was in 2020. The UK was still within the transition period. So it's nothing to do with Brexit. Now, some of the Tories will say, well, because the only other countries were like Israel. No, Hungary was another country who released the vaccine around the same time as the United Kingdom. Hungary is in the European Union as well, or was in the European Union as well at the time. Well, Hungary's still in the European Union. So Hungary and the UK released it at the same time. How is that a Brexit benefit? Alistair, thank you so much for those memberships. One to Jim, Gillian, Bernie, Claire, Mithril. Thank you so much for those. Very kind of you, as always.
We had the fastest vaccine rollout in the whole of the developed world for any major economy. That was a very big achievement. But it's important that these things are about the future, the regulation.
The future. So when Jacob Rees-Mogg said Brexit benefits will arrive in 50 years' time, how many people who voted for Brexit will actually see those benefits? Can you imagine if Jacob Rees-Mogg had told you in 2016, look, by voting for Brexit, don't worry, you'll get your benefit, but it will be in 50 years' time. Like if somebody was 50 and they were convinced to vote for Brexit, when they're on their 100th birthday, they will receive the Brexit benefit. Now, if you're a bit more than 50, back in 2016, that may be a problem.
Of AI, the regulation of gene editing.
How much into the future, Henry?
Well, I think
what that means is don't focus on what we've done, focus on what we say we might do.
It was always going to be complicated to unwind the knot. We've been a member for decades of the EU. But what...
Was it David Davis who said it would be the easiest deal in history? It would be achieved over a cup of tea in Berlin, not in Brussels. You know, these people said it's not a problem to leave the European Union. It's simple. We can also have our cake and eat it too. And now they're saying it's complicated. It was complicated, but don't worry, the benefits will arrive sometime in like 2050 or 2060.
What I think is staggering is the Labour Party wants to retangle ourselves into a new negotiation. And they're talking about the costs of some of the disruption of Brexit. But look, there are going to be some dislocations for industry. But I don't think...
Dislocation. I would love to take this guy, Henry Newman, I never heard of this guy before, but Henry Newman, take him down to the port of Dover and ask him to explain to people who are trying to import stuff or go on the other side and explain to businesses on the other side why it's taking so long, how it's just a slight entanglement or a slight issue. It's not a real problem. Max, you can't beat English exceptionalism. Stop the Tories vote. Yes. Thank you so much, Paul. Remember, guys, to get down and register to vote. There's still time before midnight.
I think you could erase those dislocations without rejoining.
I'm sorry, be for real. Like, when you look at the impact of Brexit on the fishing sector, for instance, so 83%, there's been 83% fall in our fishing exports to the EU. They were our biggest market for fishing exports. Why? That's because we've introduced all of this red tape, which disproportionately will impact small and medium businesses. Now, the reality of how you cope with that will be that we become more of a rule taker. It will be that we enter into closer regulatory...
It's not we will be, and Ash is completely correct here, but it's not even... We will be, Britain will be. Britain is a rule taker at the moment. It has no influence over how the EU implements new changes. So when the EU makes a new change to legislation, to rules or whatever standards, the UK has no choice but to go along if it wants to continue to export into the single market. This is something people don't seem to understand. It's not like everything is set in stone. It's changing all the time. The EU is constantly introducing new legislation, new changes, new requirements. So what Starmer is hoping to achieve is dynamic alignment where, okay, when something changes in the European Union, it changes in the UK as well at the same time. So it reduces some of the friction. It's not going to eliminate the bureaucracy. That will always exist until the UK rejoins the EU and then single market. But you're not going to be able to get away from the bureaucracy. It's because there's a reason why there's all this bureaucracy. The single market likes to protect the single market. The UK was a huge advocate for protecting the single market when it was a member of the European Union. Like, there is this idea that, well, we can sort of reduce some of it, but it depends on the EU. If the EU goes in a particular direction and you're not dynamically aligned, then you're going to find massive problems. Like, it's one thing for Tories to sit in London and say, well, don't worry, it's not a real problem. Go down to the ports, go to small businesses who are struggling at the moment to export or to import, and explain to them how it's just a small issue.
Alignment with the EU, with less of a say of what those regulations are. That's the nature of Brexit. Now, there might be reasons that you go, well, there are other benefits and they outweigh those costs. But I'm sick of the way in which fishing is constantly held up as like this totem of UK sovereignty, when that's one of the industries that's been sold down the river the most.
Andrew.
Yes. Remember Farage, Boris Johnson going to the fishing community, fishing processing centres, and explaining to them, don't worry, leaving the European Union would allow you to catch as much fish as you want and you'll still be able to sell it into the single market. Don't worry, they need us more than we need them. Has Farage returned to these fishing communities? No. He's probably running, a risk to his life if he does, if these fishermen actually are angry. I think some of them are angry, but unfortunately they're not interested in actually venting that anger. I'm not saying that they should do anything to him, but, at least challenge him. They should be protesting. They should be explaining, what they're going through and demanding answers from Farage and the Brexiteers.
I think that young people consistently get...
Wait till you hear it. Now, if you're from Scotland, you're not going to like this. Some people in Scotland probably already heard this.
I think that young people consistently get completely... I can't say this is an Ofcom friendly way. They're hard done by budgets, and they should have a say over decisions that concern them.
And that is the point, because they do think in terms of things like housing and rents, they're ignored.
I think we should listen to young people. Who wouldn't think that? But it's Nicaragua, Cuba, Ecuador, Ethiopia, North Korea, Indonesia. These are the countries with votes under 18. And I think for this sort of big change, Scotland isn't a separate country, but the region of the UK it does have that. I think.
So Scotland is a region of the UK. It's not a country. I already heard about that, Max. Sorry. It's meant to be a union of equals. Equal what? Equal regions? I don't think this guy would like England being called a region. It's a region of the UK. It's not a country. They try to convince the Scots, you should stay in the union because it's important to be part of the United Kingdom, because it's a family. We're all the same. We're all equal. But as we know, some are more equal than others. And these are meant to be unionists. Okay. Guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to say thank you to everyone who came on. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your super chats. Greatly appreciated, as always. Remember, let me bring up the link. I lost it before, but I'll bring it back up again. Remember, there's still time to register to vote. Make sure to get down to your local office. Make sure to register to vote if you haven't already. There's still time. Midnight tonight is the time, is the deadline. So do that, and make sure you have everything ready so that you can vote on the 4th of July. David McGuinness, thank you so much for that super chat. OFT, what a what a wanker. They don't care. I've mentioned before how Jacob Rees-Mogg considers Wales and Scotland obviously as well as counties, English counties. They don't deserve statehood. They definitely don't deserve independence. And I've said before, a wonderful argument unionists could make is to say, yes, let's allow Scotland to have independence. Let's allow Wales to have independence. Let them have a vote. If they vote to leave, then we should say to them, you're welcome to come back. You know, like someone once said, if you love something, treat it like a bond. If you love something, you have to let it go free. If you truly love it, you let it return, come back to you as well. So the unions should be actually selling the idea of, well, if Scotland wants to be independent, it should be independent. But the United Kingdom will welcome it back, with open arms if it wants to return. If it decides, independence isn't for us, we'd actually prefer to be part of the United Kingdom. I know I'm pissing off some people. I'm being somewhat serious, but I know they would never say that. But it would be a good argument for the union that, you can become independent, but if you ever want to come back, the door is always open. Wouldn't that be a positive way to sell unionism, as opposed to, no, the Scots are too dumb to run their own country, they're too thick, they're too, they're not able to, it's too expensive, they wouldn't be able to have a bank, they wouldn't be able to have a currency, they wouldn't be able to have this, that, and the other. Wouldn't it actually be more positive to say, actually, yes, you should have the right to vote to leave, but we'd welcome you back with open arms. But they don't. No, you're not allowed to go. It's a union of equals, but not exactly. So guys, remember to register if you haven't already. Make sure to leave the live stream if you haven't already registered to vote. But before we finish, we have our one for the road. Hope you enjoyed this. And here we go.
This is an appeal on behalf of all politicians running in the general election. We've come together across party lines, from Labour to Conservative, Green to Reform, to make one simple request. Please stop laughing at us. It's actually pretty hard being a candidate, and it's a long campaign. We do it because we love it. But do you know what makes it harder? You lot sniggering at us. Look, as politicians, we might not agree on much. But there's one thing we do agree on. Give us a break with all the chortling. Whether it's roaring at Rishi when he explains very generously and very patiently to a bunch of idiots that when he said that debt would come down, he actually meant it would go up, or whether it's guffawing at Keir when he explains that his dad was a toolmaker for the millionth time, or even snorting at Nigel when he blames literally everything on immigration, well, can we just say we've heard your giggles and we don't like them? Because these are serious times which require serious people with serious plans, for goodness sake. And do you think chuckling at us is going to make us work any harder? Sometimes, of course, we're funny on purpose, and at those moments you're conspicuously silent. It's beginning to feel personal. All we're saying is either laugh with us or don't laugh at all. Thank you. So, awkward pun about the leader of another party, big laugh please. Sincere attempt to explain why our policies are excellent, respectful silence, followed by standing ovation. If you can't agree to these terms, then I'm afraid we might have to stop appearing in public or on TV ever again. And no one wants that, do they? Stop smirking. Because remember, you shouldn't be laughing at us to our faces. We should be laughing at you behind your backs.
So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. As always, take care, and thank you so much to everyone who supported me tonight with lives, with super chats and memberships, and smashing the like button. So take care. As always, have a great night, and remember to register to vote.